Because if you look at field-grown farming, sometimes farmers put applications of fertilizer on once a season, maybe twice a season. So, there's 30, 40, 60, 90 days sometimes that plant goes without all the proper nutrients. So growth is stunted, the plant is malnourished. When the farmer does go to put water and fertilizer on, most of that, I say most because in all the reporting cases, it's over 60% of that nutrient and water doesn't make it to the active root zone. So that's a huge waste of our natural water resource. It's a waste of fertilizer, both in cost and basically carbon footprint to produce and truck and put that fertilizer on. But then we have other cases where,
Welcome to the UMG Podcast. I'm your host, Jerome Sheldon. As always, we have a beautiful show for you today. Now, if you're new to this channel, we ask you to please like and subscribe in the link below. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the UMG Podcast. Today we have a delightful show for you today, and you're going to find out why. Our guest, she's the founder and CEO of God Produce Global Brands. Her innovative approach and relentless pursuit of excellence have propelled the company to the forefront of the industry, transforming from a startup to a global powerhouse with $1 billion project pipeline across 5 continents. Her leadership has gained international recognition. In 2010, she was selected to join the first Obama administration executive-led trade mission to sub-Saharan Africa. In 2014, she attended the International Conference for Implementing the Food Program. In 2017, she secured a California Water Innovations Grant from Imaging H2O. She's a senator for Namibia for the World Business Angels Investment Forum and also an architect country chair of Namibia and a board member of the WBAF Global Women Leaders Committee. She also mentors aspiring entrepreneurs at Plug and Play Tech Center in Silicon Valley, where she has contributed to the creation of 30 unicorn startups since 2006. And last but not least, She actively contributes to the U.S. Women Chamber of Commerce and the East Africa Chamber of Commerce, supporting women empowerment and fostering economic growth. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deborah Walliser.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for being with us this. Well, for me, it's the morning. So for you, I probably think it's probably going to be the afternoon, right?
I think we're about the same. It's just after lunch my time. So
Oh, okay.
I'm speaking to you from Namibia. So um,
Oh,
I
okay.
think a good time zone to reach the whole world.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. So now, like you said, you are in Namibia, but where are you originally from?
Originally from a small town in California, in the U.S., a town called Santa Cruz, a little beach town outside of Silicon Valley. But I've lived and worked all across the U.S. and in 12 countries now. So I've been to lots of beaches and lots of places, but California is still home.
Oh, okay. Well, so how was it like growing up in California?
Um, there's some parts that are fantastic. I mean, I think any kid that has access to the beach, has not a bad lifestyle. But I always knew that I wanted to do something that there was a purpose for me to accomplish, and it's taken me on a long journey. I've seen lots of places and lots of people, so um, it was a good foundation.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. All right. So family-wise, you have siblings? And if so, how many?
Yeah, there's lots of us. Well, there's four, two girls and two boys, and I always thought that was a good number, because as siblings go, if you were mad at one, you still have three other siblings
Absolutely.
to choose from. So it was nice growing up. We were close growing up, and still today. So it was good.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned four. So where were you in line? Were you the oldest, the middle? Where were you a part of that line of
I
siblings?
was the oldest girl. I've got an older brother
Hmm.
who's in the military in the U.S., and then me, and then I've got a younger sister and younger brother. Uh,
Oh, okay. That's good. So in terms of early education, how was Deborah like in high school? Studious?
oh
Would you say?
gosh, high school. let's we can go from middle school to university, but let's leave out high school. um,
Okay.
no, I liked school.
Hmm.
I I liked school. I liked learning,
Hmm.
and I think that university life is very different from high school. I tell people that if you love high school, then you're going to have problems in university. If you have problems in high school, you're going to love university. So it's a different world. I think when you graduate to college or university level and you start having to choose the direction of your life, sometimes that's daunting for people. I talk to a lot of people saying, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what to pick. How do I make that next step? But I really enjoy learning. I went in on to get an associate degree in North Carolina, and then a bachelor degree at NC State, North Carolina State, and then a master's in education and another two in masters in leadership and project admin. So um, yeah, my son teases me and he says, "Mom, don't you want to like trade in all those masters for a doctorate?" And I said, "It doesn't quite work like that, but um, probably unnecessary. But I do enjoy learning."
Oh, okay. That's good. Now, for me, high school, those are one of my best, years growing up. in high school. And I think it's because you're hitting your teenage, you come into your own independence, so to speak, and there's some other little bit of a challenges here and there and stuff. So you're trying to deal with those things. But high school, yes, for me, some of the best years. I think college is a little bit stressful.
Yeah, that's what I hear a lot. There's a big difference between one and the other. It's not the same. So um, anyway, but I don't want to discourage anybody from university. Go for it. But on the same token, find a way to learn, whether it's university or not. I mean, we're so lucky today because there's so many avenues for learning.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be in a university setting. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So now we understand a little bit about you, your family. You a part of four. How was your parents? How was it like growing up with them? Was it
I have a really interesting family, which made it really interesting growing up sometimes. But my family on both sides, came to the U.S. a couple generations ago.
hmm
So I've got kind of this pioneering gene set. I think that has carried with me, and I think that's why it makes it easy for me to go explore the rest of the world. Um, my grandparents on both sides were really innovative. I had a grandmother that was a university professor. One of my granddads worked for NASA and helped write launch code. My other granddad sold life insurance, so it was always kind of a running family joke that we kind of evened out, if the launch code went wrong. It was a really bad joke, but uh, so I think everybody in the family had, some level of this pioneering spirit to some extent. So very strong-willed, which made family reunions very colorful, let's say.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So how often do you head back to California? I know that you are in Namibia.
Yeah, I've been working on the African continent since 2010, and I've lived here for the past 9 years,
Okay.
um, pretty much in southern Africa, usually between Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa. But I've traveled all over the continent. Um, I made it back, I guess, once or twice a year. I make it back home.
Right. Okay. So I guess I can ask the question, not quite a trade, so a trade out, but how did that come about with being on the continent of Africa? I mean, you from California. How did you end up in Namibia? Or I mean Africa as a continent as a whole. I mean, what
Yeah.
was the interest in that?
Um, Well, really interesting. So I'll have to start at the very beginning,
hmm
which I don't even know where the beginning is. Um, but as an undergrad student, I had a chance to work on a NASA-funded grant project to put together hydroponic systems for a lunar greenhouse, a greenhouse on the moon. And I thought, gosh, here we have this technology where we can grow produce on the moon.
hmm
Um, and control it from Houston. But we're still really primitive in our global terrestrial ag projects. And
hmm
so I decided I wanted to create an ag system that's more efficient, for production, more efficient water use, more efficient use of our natural resources here on Earth. So I started building hydroponic systems in the desert climate in the Southwest U.S. I was in Arizona at the time, on the edge of the Mojave Desert, which is one of the hottest places in the U.S. It's kind of outside Death Valley area. I think the audience may have heard of Death Valley. Um, it's really hot and arid, and nothing grows there, right? And I
hmm
thought, if I can find a system that is able to grow food year round here, this is really an answer to being able to grow food anywhere we want on Earth.
hmm
And as I developed that system, articles came out about it, universities published information about it, and people started calling saying, oh my gosh, can you come build that in my city? Or can I come learn how to do this? I can bring it back to, my town and be able to grow food here. And I thought, wow, there's a business model in this. There's a real, there's an expansion opportunity here. This is why I created the technology, is to help change lives and make communities food secure around the world. And so I thought, okay, where are the phone calls coming from? And most of the calls were coming from hot, arid desert climates. So, a lot of sub-Saharan Africa. But I had no real business plan. When I created the technology company, the business plan didn't say, wake up and move to Namibia, right?
Right.
that wasn't part of it. But I got a phone call one night from a colleague of mine, and he said, how would you like to go on this Obama administration trade mission, the first executive-led trade mission to Africa? And at that time, I had never been outside the U.S., and I thought, okay, sure, I'll go. Why not? And so I thought, oh gosh, it's really easy to travel with the president. All you have to do is wait for that phone call at night. Within a week, I was on this trade mission. It really just happened perfectly. Everything fell into place. And it was my first trip abroad, and was introduced to opportunities at that time through AGOA, which is the African Growth Opportunities Act. There was this kind of cross promotion going on, and the reception was really amazing. We traveled throughout West Africa. We traveled through Southern Africa. We met with leaders, in DRC and many other places. And the response was, oh my gosh, to be able to grow produce or all our food needs year round without having to rely on imports, without having to rely on, the sometimes really subpar, cold chain solutions that are there. Most places, cold chain solutions aren't even viable. The wastage is high. And so the answer was really, I just had an overwhelming response. And I thought, okay, we've got to implement something. So we started building greenhouses on the continent in 2012. And I was flying over quite often from the US to the African continent. And that's when I decided, look, we've got to, set up a satellite office just to service the projects that were happening. And so intelligence told me that the best place to set up a satellite office was in Johannesburg, South Africa, because airports, infrastructure, it's big, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of all the reasons that we hear about Joburg in the news. So I set up an office in Johannesburg, hired a staff, started doing training, and in my mind had dedicated 2 years to getting the African continent up and running. And 5 months into that, living in Joburg with power outages and traffic and no water and no internet, I thought, this is actually crazy. You can't actually do business here. And somebody's, there's going to be 2 people listening to this podcast. One person is going to love Joburg, and the other person is going to say, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So if you haven't been there, it is what it is. So I thought, let me choose a different headquarters. And global options are a lot. At the time, we were doing a lot of business also kind of in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. And so I had the option to put an office in Cyprus, which made it really easy to service the clients in that part of the world. And so I was moving the office from Joburg to Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 10 days before the office was supposed to open in Cyprus. And so I got on Google. This is true story. This is why you said delightful at the beginning of the podcast. Um, I got on Google and I said, basically, I don't even want to be in Joburg for 10 more days. Take me to the beach, right?
Mm.
And so Google says, calculating, and points me to the beach in Namibia, a town called Swakopmund. And so it
Mm-hmm.
says, 1,700 kilometers or whatever it said. And I thought, okay, I'll just go check out this beach that Google recommended while I'm waiting to move to Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's how I got to Namibia. So came, and that was 9 years ago. So my 2-year plan for the African continent has been extended, but we've accomplished a lot. And like I said at the beginning, it's still a really good time zone to be able to talk to the rest of the world. So it makes it easy to service our clients elsewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. And we're glad that you ended up too in Namibia because you are doing some excellent work there uh, with God Produce. So that kind of a little bit of a segue into that because that's one thing I'm very much excited about this interview because I have some questions about the process. Okay. So to get that started, we're going to show a little clip here of God Produce. And of course, this is in reference to the hydroponic. And then we will ask some questions afterwards.
Today, consumers are more conscious of commercial farming operation methods and want fresher, healthier, locally grown produce. At Got Produce, we believe that franchising our hydroponic greenhouse systems is the most cost-effective, consumer-focused way to grow and sell high-quality produce, while also providing a rewarding business opportunity. Got Produce, sustainable food for the whole world. Please visit gotproduce.us.
Okay, so God Produce. I guess my first question would be, how did that get started for you?
From the technology. The story I was sharing earlier was, I really wanted to create this technology that allowed any community on Earth to be able to grow all their food needs without relying on imports, without relying on trade disruptions, whatever, relying on the outside kind of monoculture, monolithic current ag system. And that idea was not new, but certainly unique and a small subset of the thinking at the time. Fast forward 10 years, post-COVID, I think everybody's very much aware of supply chain disruptions and drought and water shortages. But 10 or 15 years ago, people could not even imagine the world coming to a standstill, right? So I think COVID was a really nice silver lining for our business solutions because people, for the first time, maybe ever, became aware of the volatility in global food supply chains. And what we're offering is basically privatized food security. So any community on Earth can put in a hydroponic system and grow year round the greatest range of produce that's available. And it's part of it's technology based, part of it's learning based, part of it's operations based, part of it's software based. So all these go hand in hand to create this solution. But hydroponics is key because it allows us to grow in climates that would have poor soil or they don't have all the land that they would need. It's a much more concentrated and efficient way of growing. So that's a big part of the solution.
Yeah, and that's the part that got me a little puzzled because when I think about growing fruit, I mean, you go into the soil, so you need the soil to be able to do that. And I'm thinking, okay, the soil has all the minerals, it has everything that is needed, for you to be able to grow this food. But how does the process of hydroponic How does that work in
Hydroponic.
comparison with soil?
So hydroponic, the word hydroponic just means without soil.
Right.
So we just grow in water and nutrients. Sometimes we grow in a inert substrate called rock wool. Rock wool is basically rock that they melt and they spin like cotton candy, and they put it in different blocks. So it's basically growing in melted rock with water and nutrients over it. But there's, contrary to popular belief, and I'm going to burst your bubble here a bit, plants don't need soil. There's nothing about that a plant needs. So a plant needs oxygen, a plant needs water, a plant needs, micronutrients, it needs nitrogen, kind of these base amino acids. So sometimes it can get it from the soil, depending on where the plant is growing. But ask any farmer who has a really poor, farm that's been overworked, let's say, he's going to say the soil is overworked. It's, the soil is tired. We sometimes hear it's not producing anymore. So yeah, I mean, you've basically drawn all the nutrients out of the soil and not able to replenish it. So in that case, soil isn't the answer. I think in 9 times out of 10, soil is not the answer. So what we do is we provide water, we provide oxygen, and we provide the amino acids that a plant needs. And we do it in such a way that there's no evaporation, there's no runoff, there's no wastage. And it's always around the root of the plant. So, the plant cells are growing and dividing, all the time. And so every time that plant goes to grow and divide a cell, it has all the nutrients it needs. Whereas if you look at field-grown farming, sometimes farmers put applications of fertilizer on once a season, maybe twice a season. So, there's 30, 40, 60, 90 days sometimes that plant goes without all the proper nutrients. So growth is stunted, the plant is malnourished. When the farmer does go to put water and fertilizer on, most of that, I say most because in all the reporting cases, it's over 60% of that nutrient and water doesn't make it to the active root zone. So that's a huge waste of our natural water resource. It's a waste of fertilizer, both in cost and basically carbon footprint to produce and truck and put that fertilizer on. But then we have other cases where that fertilizer runoff goes into underground water sources, it goes into streams, it goes into riverways and contaminates those. If you grow in the field, you also have pests, you have weeds, you have other animals that come and walk through your field. So those are all other deterrents. In hydroponics, there's no weeds, so you don't ever need to spray herbicide or pesticide. So you're getting a plant, a perfectly natural plant that has been grown to the best of its potential without all these other chemicals on it. So it is, in essence, the most natural way to grow. And that's why hydroponics.
Right. So now here's a question that I may ask, and might be a dumb question, so to speak, but I ask it anyway. Now, is the hydroponic food, is it healthy?
Yeah, it's food without the chemical residue from herbicides and pesticides. So one, you don't have to, as a consumer, you don't have to worry about eating that. Right. Two, we use natural heirloom seeds. We use seed that other growers can't easily have access to. So a lot of these natural heirloom varieties aren't seen in the market because they're not grown commercially. But because we can grow any seed that we need to in hydroponics, we have a lot of these specialty and heirloom seed. Heirloom, the term heirloom kind of means open source. It means that's, nobody's patented it, nobody's touched it. It's the way the seed has been since the beginning of time. So we have all these amazing varieties of crops that we can grow in hydroponics, and they can grow to their best of their potential. They always have, let's say they always have all the food and water and nutrients that they need. Same as people. If somebody grows up malnourished, they're not going to be to the best of their potential versus,
Right.
Somebody grows up in an area that has everything. So, I mean, that's pretty much the plant. If the plant is in the field and malnourished, it's going to be not so healthy for you to eat.
Yeah.
So we've got, this kind of perfect health.
Yeah. Especially without all those pesticides and other chemicals now that they put in these foods and things like that. Okay, that's excellent. So, does that with the the hydroponic process, does it speed up the the growth of the plant? I mean, does it go faster in terms of having it where you put into the soil and then the time that it takes for the plant to grow? Is it faster with hydroponic?
It is faster. It is not that
Okay.
we speed up the growth of it. I'm going to put it a different way.
Okay.
We keep up with the growth of the plant. So the example that I was giving in the field, where a plant is dividing its cells and growing all the time, and sometimes it goes to reach for a nutrient, and the nutrient isn't there because the farmer hasn't put fertilizer or whatever. So that plant will be stunted. But if that cell goes to divide and it's in hydroponics and it has everything that needs, that cell can duplicate and the next one can. So we just make it easier for the plant to live up to its full potential. And plants have wonderful potential. For example, in the field, it takes about 100 days to grow a head of lettuce. In hydroponics, it takes 28 days. In the field, it takes about 7 to 10 years to grow an avocado. In hydroponics, it takes 14 months.
Wow.
If you grow strawberries from seed in the field, it takes 3 years before your first harvest. If you grow in hydroponics, it's 4 months to your first harvest.
Wow.
So it really cuts out this waiting time and makes plant growth more efficient.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. That's amazing. With the time, and of course, I would say Africa. That's a nice place in terms of production, mass production of food. Because interestingly, I always thought that with the continent of Africa, the soil, we got so much soil over there, and how do people go to sleep without food? you know. But of course, it's not just it's more things that added on to that. The production of the food plays a part in that as well. So when I think about the hydroponic system, is that like a do you use like what kind of technology do you use? Is it like a software or something that monitor the seeds and kind of like let you know when to add things to that growth process?
Yeah, we've developed our own software,
Hmm.
which allows us to make the decisions that we need to on automation. Um, it allows us to keep our data secure. We don't have to, house our data on a third-party platform. So our data secure, our decision-making process for the greenhouses is secure, our food
Hmm.
data is secure.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a series of software decisions that take place. How much water to give a plant. This variety needs more water than that variety. What temperature, what humidity, different things like that. We monitor and we adjust the environment um, to each crop needs. So we can grow pretty much unlimited crops in the same greenhouse. We've got a R&D, research and development station here in Namibia. We've got about 80 different varieties growing in the same greenhouse at the same time. And our software, we have a plant mapping system. So the software knows where each plant is in the greenhouse. So it knows, okay, right here is a banana tree, right here is a lettuce, right here is a pepper, right here is a tomato, and can water and give different fertilizer needs for those crops. So it's our software is unique in that it can be customized for any crop that you want to on Earth.
Wow. Oh, okay. So I know you're stationed in Namibia, and of course, this is something that you franchise as well. What other places are this technology located?
We're looking at doing a big rollout across the continent. So right now we're actually building a couple key company-owned facilities. One of them is here in Namibia. It is big enough to double the entire country's production of food. So currently, Namibia grows about 30,000 tons of produce a year. Our greenhouse will be also producing 30,000 tons a year, so it's doubling the entire country's production. And we're going to use this as a template. It'll be the largest greenhouse on the African continent,
Wow.
and we will be using this to roll out into other regions. So we've got a lot of interest to roll out the same template in West Africa, Southern Africa, and then we want to also have a flagship location in East Africa.
Oh, absolutely. That would be so. That would be so nice to do. So now, I know each region normally have a certain kind of a produce that they provide, or that they, food wise. Uh, is that something too that you're taking into consideration? Like for each region, what do they produce? I give an example. Say if you say in Liberia, certain fruits that are I want to say well grown there, that people normally consume. Do you kind of tailor to that, or it just maybe something open up to just by any fruit, so to speak, or do you cater to the specific needs of that region?
Yeah, it's whatever the market needs. So for example, in Namibia, there's a large demand for bananas, but
Okay.
we have no banana plantations in Namibia, so the entire banana supply is imported. So even there's a large demand for it, nobody grows it, so it makes it a nice product to grow in the greenhouse, so that Namibia can grow its own to meet its own needs. Tomatoes, melons, lettuce, anything that the local market demands. So if I go to another market, maybe they want more peppers, or maybe they need more tomatoes, or they need more avocados, or whatever it is. So we can tailor it to whatever the market demands, and if the market changes, you can literally change it with the click of a button. So within 10 seconds, the greenhouse will be configured to grow something else. So it's really responsive.
Wow. Wow. That's absolutely amazing. Okay. So now, of course, perhaps some of my audience could be entrepreneur, investors and CEOs and, of that nature, maybe watching this program. So we want to kind of pivot a little bit to the process that you had to go through, because like I said before, this is like going back into your journey, and maybe someone can be able to get some little inspiration or something from it. So when you started God Produce, what were some of the challenges that you faced in the beginning of it, if there were any challenge for you?
All of them. Yeah, I mean, but it's with any startup. Every startup starts with an idea. It starts with a person and an idea. Somebody sitting around a table saying, "Oh my gosh, I bet I could do this." That's how businesses start. And sometimes there's follow through, sometimes there's not follow through. There's a whole lot of steps after that idea process. The business model, the USP. I'm a mentor for the Jamaica Development Bank and also several other accelerators around the world. And I think the number one issue that I see when new startups come to me is that they haven't really found their USP. And USP means unique selling proposition. Their hook, what makes them, their offering different than anything else. And I think people try and come at it from a business direction. And I always encourage people to come at it from a personal direction. Why did you have this idea? why did you get excited about it? What gives you joy? What kind of people do you like working with? What do you want to accomplish for your customer? What feelings do you want your customer to have at the end of this interaction? So if you look at it from that focus, then it becomes a real personal USP, and it will drive your niche. And I would say, kind of be true to that. I woke up and I wanted to change the world, and I thought the best way to do that was through agriculture. That was what was, close to me, and made me get up in the morning. And, I just thought, if you can change a community by giving it, all its food needs year round, that has a food and health impact, that has an economic impact, that has a stability and security impact. So this impact, can infiltrate, through a larger, region and community. And, it starts with the first step. So, I don't want to say never mind all the business modeling, but find something, find that feeling that you're trying to accomplish, and try and understand it from the client side. What feeling are you trying to, give to your client? What are you trying to accomplish for them? Then I think it makes it easier. I would say to people, stay true to that. And it's when you go off that path that I think challenges happen.
Right. So as you mentioned with the USP, that's something that you formulate before, or you kind of formulate it as you are going along? Because sometimes like you said, you may have the idea, I want to do this, but that's something that is very important that you establish that before, or perhaps while you're going along.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's evolving. And it takes a little bit of thought process. So, there's people who get into business and they think that they're offering one service, but really, when you talk to them, they're offering 10 other services instead. So sometimes it's just, talking through the process. What value are you actually giving people? And I think that evolves over time. So be thinking about it from the beginning, but be thinking about it from the perspective of, what value are you giving? And
Right.
That's a living thing. It changes over time. So
Yeah. And I was going to say that, and don't kind of give up on it. I mean, you can start up with something and then end up with something completely different, but it's just a
exactly.
matter of just sticking along with it and, kind of go with it. But at least have an idea, as you mentioned, who you trying, what is it about it that you like about this? Why are you trying to do this? Who you want around you with this to help you out with these things. So those are some excellent points to kind of keep in mind. So as you was going on with your journey with God Produce, what was the strategy that you use in terms of becoming successful?
Our initial strategy was really easy. Go into locations that were really good at navigating and where there's no competition. That was our market strategy. So our hydroponic technology excels in arid and desert climates. So we said, okay, let's look at all the deserts in the world, and we go there first. And that's also, where nobody else is doing business, because nobody wants to be there, right? So by default, those were our two criteria. So that was our opening playbook strategy, and it's obviously been refined over time since then. But it goes back to, you just have to start.
Right. And of course, you mentioned about going to a desert climate. Of course, this is something that can be done also in the tropical climate as well too,
Yeah.
because you are actually controlling, the water to the plant, and so the nutrition that the plants need. I mean, you can produce that on it, but why start up first with like you said, with the desert climate? Why you started with that first?
Going to our second point of the strategy, there was no competition. Nobody wanted to work here. So it was kind of an easy entry point for, starting the company. So we have evolved now. I mean, we have many different business services that we provide. Help with business plan writing, mentorship, political risk assessment, supply chain security, all these other things that we've now added. And of course that, those can be utilized anywhere in the world. And because hydroponic greenhouses use so much less space, that they actually make a lot of sense for tropical climates, or, let's say, in the rainforest, you don't want to be chopping down the trees, or, disturbing the environment to put in more ag fields. If you put in a greenhouse, you could leave all the trees there, you can leave the natural environment there, and grow all the food needs in a very small space. So it works really well in kind of these tropic climates as well from that standpoint.
Right. So going to an area that, at times, but I guess the lesson that I take away from that would be, you don't necessarily have to go where everybody is going. You can find another location, least resistant, somebody that you'll be able to stand out in that area, and then, and kind of make your niche in that area. Okay. Now, I've always been, like I said, fascinated with the hydroponic process. What is the process for someone who wants to franchise with you on this?
Well, we have a number of different business services that we offer. So we have a web page dedicated to the services in the U.S., which is our .us website. We're launching now our global website that showcases the services available to anyone around the world. So we have a number of package solutions. So the greenhouse kit as a franchise is one of the solutions. But if you need help with design, operations, just part of the logistics, any of these other services we also offer. So it starts with just an email saying, this is what I want to accomplish. Do you have a package solution or an a la carte service that would satisfy that? And we go from there.
Right. And how long does it take normally to be able to set it up in terms of infrastructure and things like that with the software? Because you already have the software, so it's just a matter of setting up the infrastructure, I'm thinking.
Yeah, right. So depending on the build size, they go relatively quick, between 1 and 5 months. And then you have your first produce within 30 days. So it's a very quick process from nothing to cash. And that's, something unique to the ag industry. Normally you plant a crop, you have to wait a year, you harvest it, and you see if you broke even or not. In this, once you pass that 30-day threshold, you harvest every week, for the life of the project after that. There's never a downtime after that first build period. So it changes the dynamics of cash flow for anybody in the ag industry.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So what kind of I guess now we talk about the challenge, we talk about the strategy. Now let's go into a little bit of the success. What do you have any specific success story pertaining to God Produce you would like to share with us?
Yeah, the fact that we're still here, right? You can look at the statistics of the number of startups that don't make it. And I started really as this technology company. Let me just try and invent this technology that grows produce, and that evolved into, okay, now we're a software company because we need software to go with the hardware. Now we're a produce company. Now we're a greenhouse company. Now we're a supply chain logistics company. So we've grown over time, and in a really good way. We've grown, let's say, organically. We've done a couple of funding raises, nothing major, but still had the experience of doing that. We've had financial partners in other ways as well. But now really, really proud. We've got a relationship with the United Nations World Food Program. We've got some really strong partnerships with big name brands around the world for some bigger builds. So the next couple of years, we will be extremely busy and really hit some financial milestones. So yeah, we're still here, still doing
Yeah,
it. So
that's good. That's
Mhm.
good. Absolutely, that's good. So, did you always have this entrepreneur spirit? Is that something that
um,
came naturally, or perhaps over the course of the years?
yeah, I think both. I think I did always have it. I started my first company at 19.
Hmm.
Um, and have gone on to build this company and a number of other companies since. But um, not because I woke up one day and decided I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I woke up many days and thought, oh, if you've got to do it right, you've got to do it yourself. And so, I just did it, because nobody else was doing it. And maybe that's an entrepreneur, maybe there's stubbornness, I don't know, but maybe they're one and the same. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, we enjoy your journey thus far. So we're going to now come to the point where we have our 5 for 5, and this is one of the most popular segment of the show. So the 5 for 5 is basically we ask you 5 questions, nice questions, and of course you try to answer those questions as rapidly as possible as you can, but with no pressure. Oh, you no pressure at all. So,
But I don't win $1 million then either, right? Or
well,
maybe.
yeah, we can work on that one. We can work on that. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get our drum roll on that. Okay. So question number 1, your favorite food.
Macaroni and cheese.
Macaroni and cheese. Why is that? Those are not
Just with
those are not fruits.
uh, I think it's one of those Southern comfort foods. Easy, simple, available anywhere on earth, pretty much.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the next question, your favorite vacation spot apart from California.
Oh gosh. Um, I would say anywhere with the sun. I prefer the beach. I also like the desert, but that leaves a lot of places wide open for vacation spots. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And your favorite color.
Blue.
Why?
Um, I've just always identified with it. Just that's my color, blue. So
I always think about
yeah.
that. I mean, how does a person favorite color? Is just something that you just like to see, or is something that it just appeal to you? I always think about that because my wife is green. Mine is blue too, but don't know why blue, but I just like blue. Is it something
Yeah,
just naturally?
I don't know if it's wired in our brains to like some things over others or not, but I think there's other people on earth that like blue too. I think it's not just us. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And so the next question here, best advice that were given to you.
oh gosh. Wow. Best advice.
Hmm.
There's been so much over the years.
Hmm.
Um, I've always had a motto. I've always had a motto: when you're tired of walking, run. Um, and I've pretty much lived by that. So I think maybe that was the advice I gave myself. But um, I've had some really good partners over the years
Hmm.
who have made me think about things, um, made me think about what my purpose is, made me think about what my value is. And I think anybody that can elicit, some of that deeper thought in you, then that's something to always kind of abide by.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, last but not least, and this is for our audience, what's best practical step can you give to in getting started? in a business?
Just start. And I would also say just start. Do it the way you want to do it first and ask for advice later. I've seen way too many people get inundated with advice, and when you're starting a new company, everybody has advice for you. All kinds of advice, whether you want it or not. And it just actually adds to the pressure of starting a company. So I tell people, just get away from all that. Stop asking, forget everything that you've learned so far, and go back to the essence of, why do you want to do this? What feeling does it give you? What feeling are you trying to provide for your customers? And then get that straight in your head first, and then figure out a way to do that. But I see way too many people getting too much advice up front, and it's just noise. It's just noise, and it distracts from what they really want to do. So
absolutely. So get rid of the noise and just get started.
Yeah, my advice is don't take my advice.
Well, you did something right, So yes. But thank you so much, Deborah, for being with us today on this program. We really appreciate it, and the time as well too. We want to wish you the best with God Produce, what you are doing. I think that's an excellent project. I call it a project, even though it's a business, but you're really making an impact, on people's lives. So continue to do that. We wish you the best. Hopefully, we'll be able to get you back on the program again and kind of just get a little bit more of your journey. So thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Okay, so to our audience, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully, you was able to listen in and pick up some few points that you can then add on to your journey. And as always, jump, but don't jump too high because you have class. We'll see you at the next episode.